Welcome to The Growth Shift, the podcast where we unlock the psychological and strategic blueprints of predictable growth. If you've built a successful business, you know the truth. Your expertise is high value, but your time is finite. The question is, how do you sustain that success without sacrificing your most valuable asset? We believe that the next level of success requires a strategic pivot, a fundamental shift that moves beyond the old ways. In every episode, we dive into the critical turning points of industry leaders and uncover how they're leveraging AI not as a shortcut, but as the strategic force for their next growth shift. Today, we dive in with a leader who is defining the future of their industry. This episode is brought to you by Valentix, your strategic growth partner. At Valentix, we believe that trust and authentic relationships are the only true currency in high-value business. We challenge the status quo by building an AI-powered client acquisition engine that enhances your human connection, helping you move beyond the slow growth of referrals. Our AI-powered systems eliminate the grind, allowing you to break through the noise, automate tasks, and free up your time to focus on transformative client impact. If you're ready to build a predictable growth engine, learn more at valentix.io. Now let's dive into today's episode. Today on The Growth Shift, we're joined by Michelle Akapnitis, the founder of MAP Fundraising. Michelle's career is a fascinating study in ambition and organizational strategy, rooted in her early entrepreneurial experiences and her journey from a professional dancer to a major force in nonprofit fundraising. After nearly a decade at world-renowned organizations like the American Ballet Theatre, Michelle launched her own firm to help startup nonprofits build the strategic and operational infrastructure needed to scale. Her unique insights into democratizing resources, building trust, and the ethical use of AI in under-resourced sectors will provide a revolutionary perspective for our audience. Michelle, welcome to The Growth Shift.
Thanks for having me, David. I appreciate it.
We're excited to have you on the show today, starting off 2026. Great. And you are one of our first guests. Very exciting.
So
Michelle,
exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Michelle, your journey spans from working in your family business at age 10 and pursuing a professional dance career in New York to becoming a key fundraiser for the American Ballet Theatre. Given your background and the journey that you've been on, share a little bit more about that journey and what really got you to the position you're at today with MAP Fundraising.
So really the foundation of the work comes from working in the family business from when I was just 10 years old. My mom, my grandma, and my aunt were all partners out on Long Island, New York, and decided that they wanted to open up their own venture and start a children's party place. And that was the beginning of my career where I really learned all about client acquisition, project management, marketing, and leading people. It's just when I was 10 up until, throughout college. The business is still in business today, 27 years later. Don't just to give you a little insight into my age. It's still in business today. It just played a pivotal role in my work ethic, in how to build a business from nothing, and really how to support people.
Now, usually as a child with entrepreneurial parents, right, it goes two ways. It's either you learn slowly and you realize the value of entrepreneurship, or on the other side, sometimes those children start to resent entrepreneurship because it pulls their parents and their family perhaps further away from them with the amount of work that's required to start a business. But it sounds like you were in a pretty fortunate position yourself, right? Whereas it was a children's party place or children's party business. I mean, like as a 10-year-old, you must have been so excited and inspired by that, seeing your family building this business, but perhaps being able to contribute in a way that was exciting for a child as well. Tell us a little bit more about some of those foundational experiences that perhaps really paved the way forwards for you and have you fall in love with entrepreneurship and business eventually.
One of the foundational things that I think of today is the service offering. And my mom was so keen on building a repeatable service offering that was clear to clients and potential customers that they were really excited about, and that also translated clearly into the work that we were doing on the day to day so that the employees knew what we needed to do. Example, each party was only 90 minutes long, and we knew exactly from the moment those kids came in what we were doing for those 90 minutes. And you could imagine one of two adults in the room, and you have 30 kids and their parents all excited for a birthday. You have to know exactly what you're going to do, how you're going to problem solve, how you're going to instill joy and happiness in this 90-minute time frame, and really having the customer experience at the front of your mind was something that we really learned. And it also was really about process. People wanted to have their parties out because they didn't want to have a mess at their house, or they didn't want to have to worry about entertainment. And so by being able to provide this service offering and process of how we were going to take these kids through this journey over this 90 minutes, from, chaotic walking into a room to having a joyful party and experience for their friend, was something that I take with me today when I think about how to serve my nonprofit clients and just clients in general, nonprofits or not. So yeah, a major part in just my entrepreneurial growth.
Absolutely. There were clearly some very incredible lessons that you learned quite early on. I mean, especially with this dynamic, right? Children's parties. Because in children's parties here, you're not just trying to please the child, you're really trying to please the parent as well as the client, right? It's, if you're throwing parties for adults, I think generally adults understand that things go wrong and there's problems, and, they're happy when they see that you're putting in the effort to get things back on track. But you learned, the customer journey, satisfaction, and the systems required to do so for not just one party, but two, right? The children's party it's everything to them when it comes along, and the parent
Totally.
wants, a happy party,
Yeah,
happy environment. So a lot of stress from a young age and learning how to
totally.
manage, surely. But you moved from, working in the family business into professional dance.
Yeah.
How did that even happen? Because eventually, of course, you circled back around to entrepreneurship, but from professional dance, it's entrepreneurial in a way. You're your own business, you're your own
Exactly.
brand. But tell us a little bit more about what inspired you to move into professional dance, and then what you learned through that guided you back into entrepreneurship for yourself.
The dance studio was conveniently located next door to my mom's store. So I would go from after school, I would get off the bus, I would go to meet my mom at work, and then I would go next door to start taking dance class. So it was really about the community of where the party place was located and the shopping center, and it was something I fell in love with at a really early age. I think there's something about the performative aspect of it that very much what I was something I was experiencing as a hostess as a children's party place. You're on stage trying to provide an experience for kids where there's dancing and there's pizza and there's ice cream, and you're having a party. And then it really translated and made sense for me when I felt that sense of performance when I was obviously dancing. Also, dance, like all athletics and art and all the things, the amount of rigor that goes into dance is so tedious. And so that consistent repetition and habit forming was something that was really instilled in me. You're learning about the hard work, you're learning about the rigor, but you're practicing the same 10 dance steps for your entire life. You're standing at the ballet bar practicing your plie, you're standing at the ballet bar practicing your tendu. So you're creating these little micro habits inside of your body in order for you to be able to free up space for you to do other things with your body, to be able to perform and advance and grow. And to loop it all back around, that system and habit forming is something that I really think about today when we are building systems and operational infrastructure for nonprofits. You want to have the consistency of operations that's going to support you so that you can free up your mind to think about doing the higher level things, like having a strategic conversation with a nonprofit about making a donation or building a high level relationship with a major donor. You don't want to have to be thinking about the nuts and bolts of the organization when you're thinking at that high of a level.
Well, Michelle, you learned some incredibly valuable lessons along the way, as we've already identified, not just as a young person, right, but as a growing adult as well. You realize the lessons in business, but also the lessons in yourself as well, how to become a top performer through dance. But through this journey, As you were a professional dancer, what ultimately led you to steer back towards business ownership for yourself and to found MAP Fundraising?
So there was a transition when I was, in my early mid 20s, and you are you are a performing artist slash dancer, and you really are an entrepreneur, but you don't really realize it at the time because you're so focused on just trying to get a gig, trying to make ends meet. You're working so many other jobs. At one point, I had 6 different jobs when I was dancing professionally between waitressing. I had multiple waitressing jobs. I was working inside of dance studios. I was teaching dance full time. So I had multiple dance clients. So there was just a variety of work that I had to do just to maintain my dance career to try to get to the next level. So after years of really just hustling for trying to pay rent, trying to pay the bills, and trying to get to the next best thing, I really wanted something more consistent that I thought I could make a bigger impact with my life. And that came through fundraising and philanthropy and development nonprofit work. And my first big break was getting my first fundraising job at American Ballet Theater. That really opened my eyes to the corporate world and understanding the nuts and bolts of a more institutional business and what makes it work. And it was every bit of the ice cream party shop where, I had to manage clients and had to come up with different marketing tactics and had to manage client services to there was obviously so much dance involved working at one of the biggest performing arts institutions in the world, top 3 ballet companies in the world. There's so much subconscious work that you don't even realize that you learn from an early age with dance and a family business that allowed me to be successful when I was working at American Ballet Theater. And then to just kind of transition into more of the opening up my own business. I was working, it was 10 years in the nonprofit world, and I had come up with these systems and these methodologies that I had seen time and time again work for the leaders of the institutions I was working at, and were providing outcomes. We were raising millions of dollars through some of the systems that I was building, the tactics I was implementing, the strategies I was helping develop. And again, I wanted to do more. I wanted to scale. And that's when I really wanted to take things out on my own and provide these services to other nonprofits that I thought could be really helpful and shake up the industry. It was not until I quit my job and was working on this business did I realize, holy shit, I'm an entrepreneur. I forgot all along that I am an entrepreneur. I have been an entrepreneur since I was 10 years old. I was a dancer working for myself essentially my entire life. I just never thought of it that way. And I remember the moment, like literally crying with my mom. Like I just started this thing and being like, I can't believe I'm doing this. So overall, just like not even realizing that you are the entrepreneur that you are with all the lived experiences that shaped you to that point.
Amazing. And in the nonprofit sector, there's some pretty unique but common problems. Nonprofits, they exist for purpose, for impact, for providing something that really creates meaning for local communities or a broader community as well. But within that, because the focus is more so on providing, not creating profit at the end of the day, often things like systems are overlooked or not as widely
Exactly.
focused on, especially without the entrepreneurial mind being attracted, let's say, to nonprofits in general. So you learned through fundraising and through the systems that you built and the skills that you developed, there's a huge gap in the nonprofit sector in
Huge
general.
gap.
And with your
Huge gap.
entrepreneurial mind, you identified that and you said, hey, look at the success I've been able to build and create. Why shouldn't I go and expand my impact, take this entrepreneurial mind and help more nonprofits ultimately? Michelle, you identified that within the nonprofit sector, there's some pretty significant problems that you ultimately had solutions to, right? You developed these skills for fundraising, for implementing systems and processes that a lot of nonprofits today are missing out on purely because of the mindset of generally people who work in and run nonprofits. It's not for profit. So often these systems that are required perhaps are overlooked or widely misunderstood. You identified that problem, you founded MAP Fundraising to solve these problems, but At the end of the day, what are you really doing with your clients when you come in and work with them?
We're building, and we love to work with nonprofits that are in that build stage because we're really good at building. And nonprofits always need money. They always need resources, and philanthropy is likely going to be a main revenue stream. So the thing that we are doing for them is making sure that they have the core ingredients that they will need in order to start raising money. Because philanthropy in the nonprofit space is a revenue stream, just like sales is a revenue stream for a for profit company, you need a strong philanthropic structure so that you can continue to raise money time and time again. We often will meet with nonprofits who want to start raising millions of dollars, but they're not ready to do that yet, and that's because they don't have these core ingredients to be able to do that. Actually calling it our fundraising machine. You can't fundraise without the fundraising machine. And what we essentially do at MAP Fundraising is help you build your fundraising machine so that your machine can start functioning and can start helping you raise money. So we actually say that there's five key components of our fundraising machine, which is one of the first things we do when we start working with the client. We try to understand what is the state of their fundraising machine. Do they have a strong case for support? Meaning, is there clear messaging for why this organization actually needs fundraising? We, of course, can go out and just start asking people for money, but philanthropists want to know what's the impact of their gift? How is this money going to be used? And that is going to be a core ingredient for fundraising. And you can't go out and just start fundraising millions of dollars to scale your business if you don't have a meaningful case for support that explains the why behind the work. So that's one of the main ingredients that we develop to help run this fundraising machine. Other components of the fundraising machine are we have to help inform and train leadership. So many nonprofit leaders and their board don't understand what philanthropic fundraising looks like and what transformative philanthropy looks like. They don't know what it means and they don't know how to do it. So we go in and we really talk about how turn your organization into an organization that can attain transformative philanthropy, and what are the tactics and the strategies that the leadership team needs to execute in order to raise transformative philanthropy. And then the other thing that we also really focus on is your infrastructure. So I talked about can't have high level relationships and start doing the big impactful work if you're trying to focus on the nuts and bolts of the organization. So making sure that your systems are set up, you have processes, you're able to track your donors that you want to talk to and what their follow up is going to be and their conversion. And then what does your pipeline look like? How are you organizing your pipeline? How are you prioritizing your pipeline? How are you qualifying your prospects? Do you have enough information about these people to go out and have a meaningful conversation with them about your organization and why you want to partner with them to expand and scale? So those are other things that we do is help nonprofits really figure out who they should be talking to and what they should be saying when they're having those conversations, and then really wrapping all of it up into a larger strategy that we think of as like the gas of the machine to make sure that the machine is moving consistently, a roadmap essentially for this machine to take in order to get to your fundraising goals.
Incredible. So you're not just coming in and helping nonprofits raise money, you're coming in and you're helping them implement a serious business process that they can depend on, this fundraising machine. You've got to share a story with us now about how it is you came in and you helped one of these startups get from the place where they didn't have a clear picture of exactly how to get their message and their impact out there to attract the right fundraisers. And, what was the result that really followed?
How do we work with nonprofits to try to get them to be able to attract funders and philanthropists so that they can scale their work? Yes, one of our first clients we started working with, but she didn't even have a pipeline yet of donors. And so we really were starting from square one of trying to figure out what it is that this organization is doing and why is it impactful. And so we really did a deep dive into the messaging and the framework. And then we had to start putting together a list of prospects of potential people that would be interested in supporting this. And a lot of times nonprofits will have a CRM, will have like an idea of some of the types of donors they want to start engaging, but this particular client didn't. And so we had to start trying to understand the broader landscape of who was going to want to be involved here, who is in her network that we could potentially try to activate, and how can we start combining all of these people and these institutions into one system of truths that we can track all of these things, and then trying to figure out how to identify the various focus areas of the potential prospects and what they're going to be interested in with the work that the organization is doing. So to give an example, this particular organization was an education organization, and the philanthropists may be interested in various components of education, but they may not all be the same. So one component of education that might be an area of potential funding is just the geographic location of the school. They're in New York. There are education funders out there that just want to fund New York-based schools. And so how do we identify which of the prospects in that pipeline are actually going to be aligned with that specific focus area so that we can align the messaging with that specific audience? Other education funders might be interested in working with students of color or focused on test scores. So being able to align the different focus areas with the messaging and being able to then at scale be able to get the message out, request meetings, and start having those meaningful conversations was one of the main tactics that we worked on with this particular client. And then after this, building relationships and inspiring donors to actually give philanthropically to your organization takes time. It's not VC. They're not VCs. They're not investors. They're not getting a return. So the process of making them fall in love with you to actually open up their wallet so that they're just giving freely is a long-term process. So it took us about 9 months before we were having really meaningful conversations with major institutions like the Ford Foundation, like the Kellogg Foundation, like Fidelity Charitable, but they eventually came, and we were able to secure over $1 million with the nonprofit within the first 15 months of working together.
That is incredible. And I mean, you really painted a clear picture of what's necessary for nonprofits to succeed when it comes to fundraising, right? It's the relationships behind it, because the donors and the people pledging their money to support and help these nonprofits, they need to feel like they're part of that journey, that they
Exactly,
are
David.
contributing, and that they realize and see that what they're contributing to is having an impact. Give them purpose, to give them meaning, not just opening their checkbooks for the sake of
Exactly.
maybe I'll feel good or maybe I'll get a tax write-off for this. Now, Michelle, there's a lot of uncertainty in the economy right now. I'm sure that client acquisition for you, especially when it comes to the nonprofit sector, can be quite the challenge. But this isn't a challenge that is specific to the nonprofit. I mean, all coaches and consultants across the board are facing a pretty similar challenge when it comes to attracting the right type of clients for all the uncertainty, all of the noise, the lack of trust, the state of the
Yeah.
economy, and everything else. When it comes to, moving forwards in 2026 for MAP, what are some of the biggest challenges that you've identified when it comes to client acquisition to sustain the growth?
Well, I think you nailed it, David, in the beginning. It has been such a shift in landscape over the past 12 months. Obviously, the reduction of USAID and other federal grants into the nonprofit sector have completely transformed the industry. Unfortunately, we've seen a lot of nonprofits dissolve over these past 12 months. Client acquisition has changed dramatically. I will be super candid that I in 2024, we're able to secure over 10 clients from cold cold outreach through LinkedIn and other streams. And in 2025, it was reduced almost down to zero. So what I'm seeing is the idea of just working with any other consultant or client is not going to cut it anymore. But what really needs to happen is trust needs to be built, and a clear explanation of what it is that you are going to be doing and the services that you are going to be providing is vital for these organizations to be able to make a pitch to their board, to be able to bring you on as a partner with them. And then being able to show proof of the work has also been an integral part. So our client acquisition process has really turned from kind of volume and broad scale to much more pointed, relationship driven, and in-depth conversations that are going to take more than just one or two touch points in order to be able to communicate the work that you're doing and to get them invested and to be able to build trust with you, because their budgets have been reduced significantly and it's going to be a huge investment for them to take you on as a partner. And so they need to really be making sure that they are doing their due diligence, that this is going to be the best move for them in their organization. And the clearer that you can make that for them through proof of concept and thoughtful conversations, it's a key way for us to think about new client acquisition. Yeah.
Absolutely. And to quote myself a little bit here, our sponsor message, anyways,
Yeah.
trust and relationships are the only true currency in high value business, right? You need to be able to build trust. Yes, you need to be able to show proof of results and case studies and testimonials and all of these things, but you need to bridge that gap, that trust deficit that we're facing right now. Michelle, you have an incredible process that you're moving forwards with to build trust and really display what you can do and build those relationships along the way. One of the biggest sticking points is getting into those initial conversations. Right? How do you even get in the door to start building trust and to show these case studies and the proof of results? What are some of the strategies that you're starting to adopt in 2026 for opening that initial conversation when cold outreach has become more challenging than it ever has been?
Yep. LinkedIn has obviously been a huge tactic of ours. Being able to showcase my thoughts, our perspective at MAP, our methodologies, and being able to just broadcast it at a larger audience. That way clients can see that's what I want. I believe in that. I want that. And putting it on a broad stage has been one tactic that we've been exploring. I also have been having to get out of the house a lot more by attending events and by going to conferences and again taking the unique methodologies and our case studies and our proof of concept out on the road and having deeper conversations with less people in a smaller area, like an event, like a webinar, not necessarily a small stage, but I'll be at South by Southwest EDU having conversations, and we'll be speaking on the stage at South by Southwest EDU. So being able to have a platform where you're able to share your beliefs and your methodologies and your practice so that people can buy into it before they start thinking about fundraising, is definitely something that we're exploring and seeing success with.
Incredible. Yes. Getting in front of people for meaningful conversations, whether it's on a stage, whether it's in a room, but actually being able to engage people and draw them in with something that they see value in, they see meaning in for themselves and what they can expect out of it. It's definitely the way forwards to go. Right. There's a lot of noise out there that's being created right now by AI, by junkie marketing and all of these things. But by focusing on the human element, by focusing on relationships, this is where people are really going to find success. So Michelle,
Yep.
you're very human-centric, you're very relationship focused, and you have an incredible understanding of business systems and how to use them to save yourself time so you can focus on the relationships. When we're looking at business systems today, much of it is driven by AI.
Yep.
Entrepreneurs and business owners are looking at AI as an opportunity to save time in some cases and amplify their voice in others. But when you're thinking about AI, with your experience and with what you're doing at MAP, where does AI start to come into play for you to allow you to focus on the relationships you need to build and deliver impact on the scale that you are?
AI allows you to actually have a more human experience because you're able to allocate and delegate some of those tedious tasks that take up so much time in fundraising to AI. That really is the main focus for us, is how to have more human experiences using AI. Another idea is the nonprofit sector is an incredibly under-resourced sector because we're not a for-profit sector. We're not thinking about bottom lines. There's almost like a badge of honor that it's changing, but there is a badge of honor to see how little your overhead can be. When you're thinking about how to reduce your overhead as little as possible, and thinking about how to explain to donors that 95% of your donation is going to the actual programs, because this is such an under-resourced sector. Being able to leverage AI and do the work that we don't have people to help us do has been incredibly helpful. Things like doing our background and research into the potential prospects that we're going to be talking to, having a better understanding of how to have those conversations, what details about the person's background and history can we talk about. That's actually going to allow us to have more human conversations and more thoughtful conversations. It often takes hours, weeks, however long to get that type of information, but now we're able to do it in a matter of a few minutes with AI. So we're really being able to elevate the thoughtfulness and the humanness, leveraging AI, in addition to thinking about how to have more touch points with donors, because we now have an AI resource to be able to make a marketing one pager in a few seconds or draft a newsletter for us. So we have more tools now that the sector has not currently had because of just monetary restrictions and budget restrictions. We now have access to that because of AI really helping democratize just business in general.
And the power of AI within the nonprofit sector is going to be incredibly powerful for all of the reasons that you identified and more. When we're looking at nonprofits in general, the bottom line isn't necessarily the main focus, right? For other businesses, it typically is, right? There's some differences here, but there's a good overlap as well. Right, the focus on relationships is fundamental, and by using programs and AI to free up time from processes to focus on relationships, this is some of the most important that any business can apply today. Now, Michelle, when we look at relationships and human connection, how do you then advise leaders, let's say even outside of the nonprofit sector, for any business owner or leader in general, how do you advise leaders to leverage AI to amplify their human connection and those strategic insights rather than contributing to the noise and perhaps even causing confusion?
I think this whole year, this theme is not about doing more, it's about going deeper. When we're thinking about those thoughtful interactions with our potential donors, potential funders, we don't want to leverage the AI so that we can talk to now 500 prospects instead of 100. We want to leverage the AI so that we can go deeper with those 100 and really understand who's going to be a qualified prospect, what is the conversation going to be about, and just being more thoughtful in those conversations. We're already starting to see that, there's more RFPs being responded to because people can just bang out a grant application in a few seconds, or there's more cold outreach on LinkedIn because you can now set up an AI agent to just reach out to people. So instead of thinking about going broad and volume, I am encouraging myself and my clients to leverage this the technology to go deeper. The work that would typically take you 2 weeks to be able to really have a thoughtful conversation can now be done in a few minutes. So understanding the questions you need to ask and the information that's really going to make these conversations meaningful and actually follow through with the AI to get that information is how I think we're going to be able to weed out the noise and just prevent kind of just like mass chaos of cold random communication.
This is a great insight and really valuable for I think some of our listeners. A shift in perspective, rather than using AI to focus on volume, right? Use it to focus on depth, right? Rather than trying to send more messages, send more meaningful, more personalized ones that show you actually have looked into and care about understanding who it is you're connecting with. Very insightful. Now, Michelle, your story covers entrepreneurial grit, strategic fundraising, and a commitment to helping under-resourced organizations. For the founders and the coaches and the growth-minded listeners who are striving to build resilient businesses and maximize their impact, what's the single most important piece of advice that you'd leave them with about building a strong foundation and achieving long-term success?
Just keep going. Just keep going and don't stop. It's okay to pivot. It's okay to change your mind. It's okay to slow down, to back up, to turn around. For those out there that are interested in building something, in doing something, in making a difference, in achieving a goal, it is about action. Ideas are cheap. People can come up with ideas all the time. It's about actually putting pen to paper. It's about pressing send on the email. It's about, things not being perfect, but it's about just taking little steps and little progress every day to actually move the ball forward. Press send on the damn email. It may not be perfect to your potential prospect, but it's better than not getting an email out at all. Put the pitch deck together. If it's not perfect, who cares? It's better than nothing. Put your website together. My website still isn't great, but we're just going to keep going. So just keep going. Don't wait for perfection, and just keep doing as much as possible.
I love that. And it's a bit of a throwback to the beginning of your journey as a ballerina, right? Focusing on the footwork, focusing on the repetition, just putting in the work and continuing to work. I love that. Michelle, for any of our listeners who might like to learn more about MAP or might like to continue the conversation with yourself, what would be the best way to find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. You can also visit our website. It's maimpactpartners.com. Our official name is MA Impact Partners. We call ourselves MAP because the I is embedded, just like our work. Come check out our website, and I am excited to connect with anybody that may want to chat.
Michelle, thank you again for joining us on The Growth Shift.
Thank you so much, David. It's been a pleasure.
Another powerful conversation on The Growth Shift. If you, like our guests, are ready to turn your expertise into a predictable, scalable growth engine, one that eliminates the grind of prospecting and enhances your high-value relationships, then it's time to connect with Valentix. We are not a marketing agency. We are your strategic growth partner, building intelligent systems that ensure your client acquisition is predictable, not dependent on chance. To see how our AI-powered frameworks can free up your time and fill your calendar with decision makers, visit valentix.io. Thank you for joining us on The Growth Shift. We'll see you next time.